Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about my love for writing and content creation. Don't mind the blanket, it's just really cold up here right now. One thing I talked about in my last YouTube video when I was talking about caring is cool and everything is that I have never been nonchalant, okay? I've always been very loud and very annoying, and I personally am proud of that. I am proud of who I used to be because there was a point in my life where I was not necessarily fearful of self-expression. And it was a small point, but it was a point. It has, however, it feels like it's always been a struggle to really express myself to those around me because I don't want to overbear them, if that makes sense. But the one part of self-expression I've never shied away from is any sort of creation. So when it comes to writing, to content creation, to art, etc., these are the places where I truly express myself, and I have learned so much about myself through them. Writing has taught me a lot about the world and about my feelings and emotions, way more than I think anything else has in my life, to be honest, because it is how I process everything, and it's how I've been processing everything since I was a very little kid. I started journaling when I was homeschooled in first grade. It was part of what my mom's curriculum was, and we had to fill up a page every single day. At first, I hated it. I was such a little brat. She was like, dude, I don't care if you write blah, blah, blah until you fill up the page, as long as you fill up the page. So for a while, I literally wrote blah, blah, blah to fill up the page. Eventually, I started to write more. I would write about the books we were reading, about the field trips we took to go camping and explore the outside, how I felt about school, how I felt about my siblings, and it became a very good outlet, which I would carry through with me throughout the years. That was in first grade, so I want to say I was like 6, and I'm 20 now. I still journal. Unfortunately, I don't usually keep journals that I finish, so I don't have a whole lot of them, and I journaled kind of intermittently throughout high school, so it wasn't very consistent. But this was my first engagement with writing as an outlet and understanding how writing can help me process my life, essentially, as a kid. I would journal throughout middle school and high school, and looking back, I really started to get serious about creative writing in 7th grade, I want to say. And a common theme that I noticed when I look back at these old writings was loneliness, because I moved around a lot as a kid. I went to 4 different elementary schools and 3 different middle schools, and I never really stayed in the same area, so I didn't have long-term friendships. I didn't form my first long-term friendship until I was 14 and I moved to Texas. And everywhere that we went, I did make friends, but because I knew I wasn't staying there long, it was hard to be me with them and to truly feel like I was not alone. So that was something I explored a lot in my early writing, especially in middle school, was this idea of friendship, loneliness, connection. And I wrote a lot of little one-shots about platonic and romantic soulmates and stuff like that. This is the period when I discovered Wattpad and started posting fan fiction on there, because it was a way for me to connect with the world and share things that I love, because I didn't have long-term friendships or people that I knew well enough to talk about the things I enjoyed with. I just kind of felt like I was bottling up all these things, and I'm a yapper. If I like something, I'm going to talk about it. So whatever I'm reading right now, whatever I'm watching right now, a cool concept we learned about in school, I have things to say about it, and Wattpad was where I was sharing my creative writing in that era, so I could kind of at least talk to somebody, even if it was the void, which ended up being the start of a very long relationship with content creation that is still going on today, obviously, because I'm talking to you guys. Finally, I want to say when I was in 8th or 9th grade, one of my friends reintroduced me to NaNoWriMo, and it was something my dad had introduced me to, but I just hadn't really looked into. I didn't like structure, I just liked to write. And this friend also introduced me to Tumblr, which became a whole other type of outlet for me, having that blog forum to geek out over Supernatural and the Six of Crows series, look at fan arts, etc. Just share my thoughts on the world was so important to 14-year-old Chloe because it felt like the only connection with the world that I had, especially trying to figure out who I was now that I just moved to this brand new place and so many people had known each other for years and years and I was only just meeting all of them. As my writing developed through the end of middle school and into high school, I continued to explore themes that I was really struggling with and emotions and feelings I was struggling with. In high school, we noticed a shift, like a shift from a focus on loneliness to how loneliness correlates with self-worth. I wrote a lot about characters who were struggling with their self-worth and self-respect in the same way that I was, where I didn't really understand. I used to compromise myself a lot for the people around me because I felt like being low maintenance and being easy would make me easier to love. And this is a theme commonly explored in my writing as a form of reassurance to myself. Because as I go back, because I just regained access to this Google Drive that has all of my writing from when I was like 13 to 17 in it. And a common pattern I'm noticing is I wrote these stories as kind of a reassurance. So I took real events that happened in my life and I changed certain aspects and names of characters, etc., the dynamics of relationships. And I wrote them better than they had happened because I wanted to believe that it did not have to feel like this and I was not difficult to love. So I wrote characters who were hard to love but were loved by the people around them anyways and who loved the people around them anyways. And I think it definitely really did help me process what I believe self-worth is and what I believe friendship should be because I'd never really had that background in friendship before. I'd never had long-term friends until I was in that part of Texas and we stayed there for a few years. So I wasn't entirely sure how to build a long-term friendship. I wasn't sure how to connect with people my age. That just was not something I was experienced in. And writing kind of helped me navigate those. Near the end of high school, I started to focus a lot on grief. So at this point in my life, I had lost my grandfather. He had passed away in October 2022, and that was a really difficult loss for me because I've always been very close with my grandma and grandfather, and he was older and he was definitely sick, but none of us really saw it coming because it just wasn't what we expected. And this was a point my senior year where I saw a huge uptick in my writing. I had been writing creatively, like consistently, but it got to the point where I was avoiding schoolwork because I was writing and that's how I was processing my grief. And the thing about losing a family member is like nobody really knows how to act about it or what to say or do, and you're just kind of supposed to go back to being normal after it, which is hard even if it is what's considered a normal loss. Like it wasn't necessarily traumatic in any way, shape, or form. It wasn't like, oh my god, I lost my parent in a car accident or my granddad died of COVID and stuff, which was happening to real people at the time, but it's still such a big loss, especially when you're so close with your grandparents as I was. And trying to figure out how to navigate the cycle of grief and those huge feelings as a 16, 17-year-old while also having to navigate my senior year of high school where it's like, okay, college applications are due. You have a boyfriend. Your friends are expecting you to be at school. You have to keep up with all of your homework for your 8 classes. But it was a great medium for exploring what I was going through and giving myself a bit more empathy and grace. I had already been exploring those themes of self-worth and self-respect, and I was trying to build a sense of that within myself. And through exploring my grief, I was able to also extend some empathy to myself. Flash forward, so like we said, that was it. Those were the huge themes that I wrote about in middle school and high school. And after I got locked out of that Google account, after I shifted into, I graduated, I started college full-time, and there's a lot of stuff that had happened since then. I had stopped writing creatively for a very long time. I don't think I picked up a pen again and started writing a story until the summer of 2024. So I went a little bit over 2 years, maybe 2 years and 4 months. 2 years and 4 months of not writing creatively at all. So I was still writing in journals every so often, and it was definitely helping me because writing through journals helped me see what I was going through and what my relationships looked like from the outside, and helped me understand what was and wasn't okay for myself to say and for other people to say to me and how they treat me. But losing that ability to write stories felt like a wound. It felt like something was infected inside of me. It was just growing and growing. And I knew when the floodgates broke, it was going to be insane. Finally, just like when my grandfather passed, I noticed an uptick in writing. When I got out of a relationship, and during that time period, I was going through a lot with my family and mentally in general. I got out of that relationship and I wrote a novel in one summer. I think it was like 3 weeks of writing. I would sit down and I would write 10,000 words in one sitting. That's all I did. I woke up, I wrote, I went to work, I came home, I wrote, I slept, I wrote, I went to work. It was just, that's all I did. And this creative writing got me through that period because I was at such a low point where I wasn't sure how I could continue existing and continue living. But I was at that point where I was starting to genuinely have some pretty scary thoughts. And the only way to keep them at bay and to create a sense of hope and understanding of what I was going through, to reconcile what was happening to me, was to write creatively. Writing is my coping mechanism. Some people can get lost in books or movies, or they will drink or they go out with friends, and for me it is writing. Like, I love reading, you guys know this, I've talked about books plenty on this channel, but writing is my way of getting lost, of coping with everything around me. Learning to channel this and turn it into something good, something beautiful, has had such a amazing effect on my mental health and on me as a person, because it feels just like a weight has been lifted off me. Genuinely, when I am creating, when I am writing, I feel like it is the calmest I ever am. I'm gonna read a little bit of what I wrote the other day because I think there were some really good parts in there. Specifically, I said, writing is a time capsule into the periods of my life long left in the dust and windows into the mind of the girl I used to be. It is my safe place and my salvation. I find forgiveness in the words on the page for the things I got wrong and the things I am learning to get right. I think that those couple of sentences really sum up my relationship with writing as a whole, and they really tell you everything you need to know. So yeah, that's this week's YouTube video. It was kind of rambly. I hope it made sense and that this connects with somebody watching this in some way. But I have so much fun yapping with you guys every week. It's become kind of a ritual for me to sit down on Saturday mornings and film these videos to then upload on Monday. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next Monday.